Have you had a chance to check out the TRX-4 Sport? I've had this one for about 6 months and I'll tell you, it's done me pretty good. So today, I wanted to do a review on the TRX-4 Sport. I'm John Holmes with Holmes Hobbies. Thanks for tuning in. So I picked up this rig, the TRX-4 Sport, mostly for my son. He's 7 years old. And as most 7-year-olds are, they don't have the best throttle control and they don't have the best innate ability to not get the rigs wedged into rocks and try to kill them. But the TRX-4 Sport is a pretty resilient rig overall. And that's probably the biggest reason why I wanted to do this video. So let's just show you a little top speed. This is running two cell LiPo. This is the TRX-4, or I'm sorry, the Traxxas ID charging system. The reason why I went with that is because it's super easy for my son to use the charger. It's practically foolproof. There's no balance plug to mess with. And as far as an entry level, although maybe not entry level price, but entry level kit and system, I felt that it was probably the best thing to get my son into it. And so far, we have had no problems with the rig. I have, let's see, this would be my fourth TRX-4, and I have had two of my systems where the radio would get unbound and it simply would not rebind and at least stay rebound. We would bind them and then it would just come unbound within 30 seconds. Not really sure what the problem is with those systems, but we haven't had that issue on this one. And really besides that, and maybe wearing out a motor or possibly destroying the servo, getting bound up in the rocks, there's really not a lot of problems with these. The drivetrain has proven to be extremely solid over the last couple of years that the TRX-4s have been out. The Sport has an extremely stout and simple transmission, and that's good. Here, this is kind of showing the lack of strength that our servo has. It's enough. It's certainly enough for the average driver. My 7-year-old he's gonna be fine with a stock servo for a while. But this is the first time that I've driven this rig myself out here on our test course, because usually I just let my son drive it. But this is all stock. We got the stock tires, stock electronics. It's still set up in trail mode or whatever, so the drag brake isn't really great, and it's double tap reverse. And overall, just like any TRX-4, pretty reliable suspension. I can predict it fairly well. The tires are decent, same as any RTR or kit at this point. It's gonna be okay. Oh yeah, enough to get up that rock. If it was wet, more than likely it wouldn't be that great. But nice and predictable. For having such a big body, I'd say decently low center of gravity, and running this huge 5 amp hour 2-cell pack is it's not the best for performance, but runtime wise, I don't know, we get like 3 hours or something out of this guy. So overall, for the value that it is, for the stoutness that it is, the reliability, the ability for me to throw my 7-year-old at the rig and not even give him any instructions, I would say these are a pretty dang good value. Long term, if I was going to choose one rig for a child, I would say this is probably going to be the one, just because I don't have to worry about him breaking it, honestly. He has had practically zero instruction besides the occasional use your throttle control when he's just bashing it into rocks, and he's done really good with that. So what more do you want for a rig that you can pretty much just forget about, that you can just give to your son or your daughter and say, go have fun, or go out on the trail ride with them, and not be constantly, watching over them saying, oh, don't do that, don't do this, don't destroy my $800 rig, please. And that's what I love about this one, is that I can just let him go at it, or I can try to destroy this thing with reckless abandon, and it just keeps on ticking. Takes a licking and keeps on ticking. But the suspension geometry, as I've said many times before, for the TRX-4, suspension geometry on these is really on point. They did such a good job getting the roll center right. And since the Sport has a lighter body than the Defender does, it handles better on the rocks. Just less likely to tip over. You know, my Defender probably would have tipped over there. And even without overdrive, this thing just pulls. It pulls lines very, very predictably. Now, if I was going to do some upgrades for myself, I would go to 3-cell LiPo. Probably keep the stock gearing because the gearing is definitely low enough. I would end up swapping out into a Crawlmaster motor, even just a Sport. Crawlmaster, we have an 8-turn version out now in the 550. We also have the 10-turn, the 12-turn, 13-turn, and 15-turn. The 12-turn is going to be very similar to stock speed, but since this particular rig is running on 2-cell LiPo, I think I would lean towards an 8-turn Sport, which is going to give us that wheel speed as if we were running 3-cell LiPo, but still have really, really smooth startup. Let's see, is it going to pull this? We got our rear tire wedged back here. I don't think it's going to quite pull that line straight. Yeah, so I would go with an 8-turn. More than likely replace the ESC to a BRXL just because the drag brake is going to be better. The startup is going to be a lot smoother. And then if I was going to change out the servo, which I probably won't do for my son because too powerful of a servo can kind of get you into trouble, brake parts, I would go with the SHV V3, SHV 500 V3, just because it has lots of power, really fast servo. It's going to not limit the rig. But again, this rig is for my son, so more than likely the only thing that I'm going to do is swap out the motor for a Crawlmaster in that 8-turn. Give him a little bit more wheel speed. It's not going to be so powerful that it tries to break the drivetrain. Even with a brushless motor though, these things are so rigid and so solid that I wouldn't have worries throwing a fast brushless, even something like a 3300, 3500 kV Puller Pro. I'm not going to worry about breaking this rig. But I don't want to throw that at my 7-year-old either because he will probably find out a way to break it. Oh, let's see. I mean, final thoughts on this. I really don't have any hesitations giving a recommendation for the TRX-4 Sport. It is a couple years old at this point. This is certainly not a new rig. I've been wheeling this a little bit myself. My son has been trying to break it for 6 months though, again, without any sort of directives of, you know, don't do this, don't do that. It's just, you know, I throw him out there. And besides him having a little bit of direction for me to learn how to, you know, go slow and ease up objects instead of doing, you know, what most 7-year-olds would do is just, you know, this sort of thing and flip it back over and yeah, that's crawling, isn't it? Let's see if we can break this thing. Yeah, it holds up so well to that sort of abuse that absolutely 10 out of 10 as far as a rig available on the market today. Just what we kind of need as far as something to go out, have fun, and don't even worry about the actual rig. I mean, sometimes you got to worry about where you're driving though. Maybe I should keep an eye on that. So with that, if you do have any questions that I didn't cover in specifics, you know, I don't do things like turning radius and a lot of the, you know, the smaller details that to me aren't really that big of a deal if you're just going out and having fun. That's, yeah. I think that's just what I'm going to do here though. I'm going to keep crawling for a while. I'm going to have some fun and probably just go ahead and switch out that motor for the next video. Give ourselves a little bit more stable crawling, a little bit better crawling there. So yeah, once again, if you do have any questions, feel free to leave them down below. I'll do my best to get to them. And as always, thanks for tuning in. Have a good day.